very small community.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Mats. And you will continue with the panel also. So let's see if we should stop. The next speaker, please, is from Invest Hong Kong, in charge of fintech, but also now the financial service. My colleague, King Lung, please. You hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
Where do
And
we?
let me
Okay.
share screen.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much also participating so late. I mean, it's, what is it now? 9 o'clock.
That's okay. I'm always juiced up to talk about this topic. Now, just want to make sure that you can see the slide, all right?
We see the slide, not as a slideshow, but we see the whole your whole PowerPoint. You can do slideshow if you want. It's great.
Yeah, I think that would be better. Let me go there. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, so let's go. Now, so again, thank you so much for the invitation. This is a topic that's dear to my heart, and also many industry stakeholders as well as the government leaders. Because again, when you look at some facts, Hong Kong has a very high density of crypto activities. Because when you look at it's almost like crypto 1.0, I'm talking about the crypto mining. Majority of the crypto mining companies and also the company Bitmain that manufacture that Bitcoin mining machines happened in China more than 10 years ago. So again, since then, there have been a lot of smart contracts, engineers, exchanges. So again, the second generation of the exchanges, many of them either started, firms like the Binance, the BitMEX of the world, majority of them started in China. And then of course, when the China banned cryptocurrencies, a lot of these activities moved to either Hong Kong or other jurisdictions. And just now I saw the previous gentleman sharing that top 10 list. And I was a bit shocked initially when I didn't see Hong Kong on top 10, which is almost unthinkable, given how much digital asset Web3 activities are happening in Hong Kong. So then I thought, well, maybe I look a bit further and I realized because the previous slide was about country, the strictly top 10 countries. Strictly speaking, Hong Kong is not a country, it's a city. And we are part of China. So that's probably why Hong Kong wasn't on the list. So I'd like to start with by going to this other charts that you can easily Google. All right. So again, this is about the crypto adoption more broadly. So again, I haven't looked in detail the methodology, but this sounds a bit more right because again, Hong Kong is very high on the list based on a lot of people with Web3 digital assets that we talk to, and in a way we are very close to UAE because again, to be fair, Dubai has done a fabulous job. Now I'm a bit surprised, to be honest, to see Australia so high up because I was in Australia on business about over a year ago, and I talked to their regulators, and they have been a bit much more in the cautious mode.
Okay. We see your first slide. Can you click on the second slide? We don't see that.
Oh, okay.
We don't see the slide, so we just see the slide. So click on number 2 there on the left.
Click on slideshow, and then we can.
Yeah,
click on the slideshow. So.
Yeah, you know what? Let me see how I can fix this. Why don't I do this?
Yeah, just use just click on the slide and then we see it.
Yeah. Can you see now?
No. It's a little bit slower. Just wait a couple of seconds.
Can you see the second slide?
You got to share the slide.
You need to share it. I think it's there. Yeah. Perfect. There. Let me see it. The second slide.
Right. Okay. So so can you see the bar charts running across, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. So as you can see, Hong Kong is very high up, and this is something that is more consistent to a lot of feedback that we got from talking to people from Dubai, from Europe. I'm talking about a lot of the crypto natives. So this is more right. Now, but I'd like to probably quickly just speed through the slides so that I can leave, say, 5 minutes or so for some more interactive questions from the audience. So I'll spend the next 10 minutes just quickly go through some of the highlights as opposed to going through slide by slide in detail. Now, first of all, Hong Kong has always been pro crypto, digital assets, and Web3. And when we launched the regulation by our regulator, the SFC, the Securities and Futures Commission, back in 2018 and then 19, it was an opt-in regulation. So that means for the exchanges that want to be regulated, they can. But even for other so-called unregulated exchanges, they can still operate legally in Hong Kong. So this is a very welcoming and friendly regulatory regime. Now, but since the year 2022, as you can see here, October 31st, and that was the first day of the FinTech Week back then, the Hong Kong FinTech Week back then, we made this highly assertive policy statement that shocked the world. In a way, we had all the senior officials from the Hong Kong government, from our financial secretary to the CEO of SFC, the CEO of HMA, which is, by the way, SFC is a regulator regulating the crypto exchanges, whereas the HMA is a de facto central bank and also banking regulator. And then the Secretary for Financial Services, of course, like Invest Hong Kong, many of us came out in unison, saying that, you know what, we are highly supportive and we are all in. All fronts. It's not just the crypto exchanges. There'll be more welcoming policy to support the development of the industry. So that caught the attention by a lot of people globally, from the Bloomberg. I mean, you can easily just Google. You will see a lot of international media covering this incident. Now, so of course, by being all in to foster the developments, it doesn't mean that we are not having the investor protection in mind. So that's why for us, it's about having investor protection. At the same time, we want to speed up in fostering growth for the industry to try to strike the balance. Now, and I think one thing that we are also super excited and about the whole tokenization movements is that it's not just us, but also a lot of industry leaders, as you well know, from people like the BlackRock, the JP Morgan, the Franklin Templeton of the world. Many of them, particularly this year, 2024, they have already launched numerous projects. One of them was called Build, B-U-I-D-L, if I'm not mistaken about the spelling, by BlackRock. They were able to basically fundraise over $500 million to buy that tokenized fund. And that is almost one of the quickest ever in terms of ability to run the fundraise of a fund launched by an asset manager. So that speaks volume about I think the speed of adoption. Now that some of the big boys from Wall Street are now endorsing this whole movement. So for the Hong Kong government, we basically see the same, because Hong Kong, being an international financial center, now in number 3 in the world, just behind New York and London, we see that tokenization is a way to literally transform the entire financial services sector to the next level. So it's not Bitcoin, which is, well, the whole crypto is about what, 2 trillion, 2.5 trillion market cap. Whereas for the tokenization of other assets, securities, real world assets, all combined, we talk about hundreds of trillions of market cap. So this is why we are so excited about backing the tokenization movement. Okay, now, so I think somehow the slide jump a bit faster. Great. Okay, so another thing that is super interesting is because many family offices, in fact, Hong Kong has 2,700 single family offices in Hong Kong alone. So this is like super high density. In fact, when it comes to high net worth, Hong Kong has the top 3 highest concentration of ultra high net worth individuals. So that's why we have been seeing and tracking the movements for family offices to put money into alternative investments, including crypto and digital assets. So tokenization, again, is about changing the market, in which I think there are numerous studies from BCG, from the Bain, and the world. So whichever report that you see, the tokenization market is north of more than 10 trillion US. So this is a very sizable opportunity. Now, I understand the text is a bit small. My colleague has a copy of this. We're happy to share this document. But since early part of this year, we started to track and tally up the different tokenization projects, from traditional securities, the tokenization of funds, mutual funds, money market funds, and also the other assets such as real estate, trade finance, tokenized gold done by the HSBC, tokenized trade settlement in terms of the electronic bill of lading for shipments, documentation for shipping. So all these things are actively happening in Hong Kong. Now, and then another major project that have also caught a lot of attention is a project called Project Ensemble. Now, and this is very exciting, is because number one, HKMA, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, is one of the most reputed regulators on the planet. And also they are the de facto central bank, managing over 480 billion US dollar, making Hong Kong one of the top 10 largest foreign reserves on the planet, in which HMA is our manager of that fund. So basically when they speak, people listen. Now, so when you look at this slide, you can see that there are 4 boxes and 4 corners. So from fixed income, investment funds, liquidity management, when it comes to like the treasury or tokenized deposits, type of tokenized vehicle, green and sustainable finance, and trade and supply chain finance. It's because HMA putting the weight behind this in saying, look, let's focus our energy between the governments and private sector into these 4 areas in which we can see the biggest impact to the real economy. So that's why different financial services firms, major banks, tech companies, they are all participating in different shape of forms into like sandboxes and different use cases. So that's why I have to say, if you just ask around, this is probably one of the most progressive regime in pushing forward tokenization based on a government-backed regulator. So that's why this is super exciting. Now, of course, I think the virtual regulators, we have different, looking after OTC, looking after the virtual asset trading. So I won't go into details. But HMA is responsible for regulated stablecoins, in which they just announced 3 companies responsible to go into the sandbox to try out the different use cases before HMA would release the full regulatory regime. People have been speculating that that may come in the probably first half of next year. But again, HM has not announced it, so we don't know exact timing yet. But then 3 companies already are participating in the stablecoin sandbox. And this is huge because when you talk to people in the sort of crypto field, tokenization field, people tell you the biggest innovation or the largest use case is actually something simple, is payment. How about tokenized US dollar, i.e. Stablecoin, US dollar stablecoin? So there's a lot of traction, obviously. Now, but at the same time, since the Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the US dollar, so this is as stable as the US dollar. Now, but at the same time, since a lot of trade, I'm talking about physical goods trade are happening between mainland China with the rest of the world, including Latin America, Africa, and of course now getting more and more traction in the Middle East, of course in Europe. So there will be a lot of trade that can be settled by using stablecoins. So again, with the HMA, again, they are open-minded about having different currency or stablecoins being issued. So you can imagine, let's say offshore renminbi can also be exchanged with Hong Kong dollar, exchange with euros. So this can be also another major push for wider adoption of regulated stablecoins after HMA launched the regime. So I'll quickly speed through this. So there are many things that happened since the policy announcements. We have launched the crypto ETFs in Bitcoin, Ethereum, both futures and spots. We have launched different major projects such as the tokenized green bonds. My colleague Rachel will speak very shortly afterwards. They are the de facto designated Web3 hub of Hong Kong. We have hundreds of Web3 firms stationed at the port. And then we have Hong Kong dollar. I mean, the list goes on. And basically, there's just so many things happening that we are almost running out of space to track all the milestones that we have. Okay. Now, I think in the interest of time, I won't go into details about this. In case you're interested, we have different talent scheme to make it very easier for, let's say, engineers to come to get a visa to work in Hong Kong. Super easy these days. These are different schemes. And then we also have, by the way, these are universities from Sweden that will be eligible for the top talent pass. And by the way, for a lot of times, in fact, I was just interviewed by media. And the question was, so how would you define how vibrant a market is? Of course, traded liquidity is one. How progressive and market friendly the regulators and the government's policymakers are is another. But the third factor, the third leg of the three-legged stool is actually talent, the access of talent. And in Hong Kong, actually, this is something that we are also pleasantly surprised, is that of the top 20 blockchain universities in the world, based on this study by Condesk, this is from 2022, essentially, Hong Kong has 4 universities that rank in the top 20. And this is just the students alone. And not to mention the hundreds of thousands of blockchain engineers in mainland China, in Shenzhen, Hangzhou, Shanghai, who've been working on this blockchain-related field for so long, some of them for 10 years. So that's what there's an enormous depth and breadth of basically blockchain talents in Hong Kong. Okay, now, so there are a number of events. So Hong Kong Fintech Week is coming up next week. And then the Global Fast Track Program is essentially a business matching program in case you're interested to match with potential corporate clients, the HSBC, the Standard Chartered, the Goldman, the AIA alike. You can sign up and then we can basically onboard you and then help you to match with potential either corporate clients or investors. And on the right, we have, again, this is the first ever major events in which we have been aggregating all the major players in the Web3 digital asset space to launch the event all in 1 month in October. So that's why we call this initiative Blocktober. So this is happening now. And you can see the logos here. There are a number of firms and the familiar names like the Circle, Condesk, SmartCoin by Chainlink, Orbiter, Solana, and also, by the way, Christie's. They're also the auction house. They're also launching a digital art fund in Hong Kong. And by the way, I forgot to also mention, Hong Kong is actually the second largest art auction market in the world, just behind New York. So that's why there's just so much money in buying art. Of course, now the second generation of the high net worths, the family offices, they're much more interested about the digital native art. So AI generated, for example. So that's why Christie's, they moved the regional headquarters to Hong Kong, and also they're launching the digital art fund in Hong Kong during October, actually during the same week as the Hong Kong Fintech Week. So again, you can scan the QR code to get basically more information. In case you're interested to come and join us, let us know. We can get you some tickets. Now, so as I said, I just quickly breeze through all my slides. And by the way, these are my personal contact information. Ping me in case you haven't further questions at this moment, but then ping me and I'm happy to connect you with my colleagues. And I think I have maybe a few minutes left. So just want to see if the audience have any questions. I can elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, King, I assume that if you can email out, we can send out this presentation. That's
sure.
Fine? Perfect.
Yes.
Do that.
Yeah.
Question?
Yes. Do you hear me when I speak like that?
speak up. I think that works. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
speak up.
Yeah.
Standing.
No.
Okay,
Loud.
yes, I have a question. Currently, there is a summit in Russia, which is called the BRICS Summit. And one of the projects that we wanted to initiate, it is the BRICS Bridge, which is which the BRICS alternative to SWIFT, which is the cross-border payment supported by many countries. I wonder, is Hong Kong involved in this project? And who is involved? Who can we contact, for instance?
Sure. Now, first of all, let me separate two topics. Now, first, I'm aware of the BRICS meeting. This has caught the attention by a lot of people because of the long-term implication. Now, but since the meeting is still ongoing, to my understanding, so I won't comment too much. And I'm sure that all of us are waiting for them to make some announcements. So this may have implication about gold, as a potential collateral in backing the BRICS currencies and all that, right? The media has been covering this for some time. So let's put this aside because we just don't know what their outcome would be from the meeting. Now, but what I do want to address your question directly is the fact that you're correct. There's this organization, the BIS, the Bank of International Settlement, in which they have launched this project together with many major, let's see, I'm trying to find, well, anyway, I'm going through the Google now, but let me not do that, not get distracted. But basically, if you Google the word Ambridge, the letter M and then bridge, Ambridge. If you Google Ambridge, you will see that a number of major organizations have been working on this cross-border wholesale money movements, if you will, for some time using CBDC. Now, so who are involved? Of course, I think the leader of this project is BIS, the Bank of International Settlements. So people call them the central bank of the central banks. Okay, and then the other major players involved include, of course, Hong Kong MA, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, our de facto central bank, and also banking regulator, the People's Bank of China, the central bank of mainland China, the Bank of Thailand, Central Bank of Thailand, Central Bank of UAE, and I believe, to my understanding, the Central Bank of Saudi Arabia also recently joined. So these are the countries that have been working on this for some time, in which the wholesale CBDC is so mature. There's another thing you can also Google easily by Googling PwC, most advanced wholesale CBDC by country. And you will see, actually, of course, Hong Kong is not a country, but Hong Kong and Thailand were tied #1 as the most advanced in wholesale CBDC, in which the underlying transaction infrastructure is Ambridge. Okay, so that's why a lot of the central banks that I just mentioned have been working on this for a number of years. So I would say that by now the technical side are in pretty good shape. So the latest version of the Ambridge collaboration are focusing more on the actual use cases. So that's why just now when I talk about the project ensemble project by HMA, one of the use cases they're working on is what they call tokenized deposits. Now, you may ask, what is that, right? So simply put, what tokenized deposits are referring to is that at different banks, you have deposits, you tokenize it, you can move it around using the blockchain infrastructure without having to go through SWIFT. So this is a way that you can drastically improve the efficiency at a wholesale banking level, okay? So this is something that, again, there's just a lot of information online, but if you're interested to find out more, drop me a message and then I'll connect you with the right people, for example, at HMA, responsible for this Ambridge project, and you can ask more direct questions from the experts.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, King. It's
Okay, thank you.
And thank you so much for, I mean, it's almost 10 o'clock in Hong Kong now, so it's late. But thank you so much. We will send over the presentation there. So let's, we now the next speaker from Hong Kong, from Cyberport. Cyberport is a technology park south side of Hong Kong Island. They have different verticals, and of course, fintech is important, big one. And we have the senior manager for fintech. Please, Rachel Lee.
Yep, thank you everyone, and thanks Kane for the amazing introduction to how Hong Kong is a Web3 hub and how we can like proceed further like in the foreseeable future as well. And let me show this. Can you guys see it?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay,
Perfect.
sure, great, that's great. Okay, so yeah, let me just give a very brief introduction on Cyberport and how like the like government and also us as a wholly owned private company of the Hong Kong government can also help in various ways for companies that are interested in joining the community here. So basically in Hong Kong, like in Cyberport, we have over 2,100 community members. So including, let's say, fintech, smart living, smart city, and digital entertainment companies. And Web3 is actually an emerging space that runs across all these application clusters. And we are like really like fortunate to see like various support that the government is giving in a sustainable development in this field. So in Cyberport, we also have various unicorns. I won't go into details. And one thing I wanted to highlight is that we also have 2 licensed virtual asset trading platforms here. So in Hong Kong, there are 3 licensed virtual asset trading platforms. So it's basically sort of another name for crypto exchanges. So they're actually licensed by the Hong Kong Securities and Futures Commission. And at the moment, actually, retail customers can actually trade some of the larger tokens, like just like you trade stocks and all that. So for example, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Avalanche, and Chainlink, you can actually trade these on Hashkey at the moment. So we actually provide like these sort of assets to retail for like just basic sort of exchanges without any like hassle of like converting from like your bank account to whatsoever like on these exchanges. And the other thing is that for companies who really want to like start a business in Hong Kong, actually Cyberport also provide various funding support and also network support as well. So for example, for companies who already got a little traction and have already had some sort of product, then actually like they can consider the incubation program as well. So it's around like 1 million Hong Kong dollars in funding and various different support, let's say on the accelerator side, like there are various fundings available as well. And also for overseas marketing, there's additional 200,000 Hong Kong dollars for that. And Cyberport also have like various networks, so to support growth of these companies. For example, the enterprise network to help connect companies with local enterprises, investors for fundraising, and technology network and professional networks alike. Yeah. And one thing to highlight is that we also have our own fund. So for the Cyberport macro fund, basically we've invested in 28 projects, and the maximum that the fund can invest in per project is 20 million Hong Kong dollars. And also it's quite a good sort of signal to other investors if Cyberport is investing in it. because usually they would feel that, oh, we have done quite a lot of due diligence and so on. So actually the co-investment ratio is pretty high at 1 to 9. So for $1 that Southport invests, usually these companies can get like $9 to $10 from other investors as well. And since we're talking about Web3 today, so we'll like go a little bit into that. Basically in Southport, we have various like Web3 companies from infrastructure side to system tools and data and application and content. There are like various more sort of well-known Web3 companies, including like Animoca, Nimland, and so on. And we also have various layer 1, layer 2 chains, cross-chain protocols, and so on in our community. So support on all different layers. And for the company that will be presenting today, we have like Universe, which is also a gaming company. Really happy that Chris can join us to share his experience. And Salt is in our community as well on the tokenization side. And currently we have over 270 Web3 companies. So it's actually quite a big jump from the time that King mentioned when we initially had the announcement. There are around like 80 companies in late 2022, and the announcement was being made by the government to support further on Web3 development. And now like it has like gone through like a few votes. And for company origin as well, I want to highlight a little bit is that actually we're quite international. So for local company, it's actually less than 60%, for founders origin. And we actually have companies from 19 different regions across the world. So some like from Europe, various parts of Europe, some like North America, like Southeast Asia and so on. So pretty diverse sort of origin as well for company side. And we welcome companies from all around the world. There are various focus areas where we help to develop the Web3 space. So I might not go into great detail, but basically there's the Web3 Academy. We also partner with various universities. We just went to Silicon Valley as well with these students. And this internship program, actually that's also something good for the Web3 companies here, because we actually do subsidies for our Web3 companies to hire local talents and also international students. And there's also the Web3 Living Lab, where we showcase the latest Web3 solutions. And also there's a community building series where we conduct like every week with a different theme. Also, like as we mentioned, we have the enterprise network, but that's not all that we do. So we also run various schemes to help connect startups with local enterprises, and Web3 POC scheme is one of it. And we also established the Web3 Investor Circle, where we like sort of encourage more investment in this field. And since its establishment in late May, we already have over 30 companies like investors onboarded. And actually we are in touch with like a lot more than that, but for the first batch, it's like 30. And yeah, there's various different events that we host as well and also support. So we supported like almost like 60 events with around 150K participants in total. And we also organize various large-scale events. Lastly, just wanted to like give this like nice slides. So then if you guys are coming over, let's say for next year, actually we're opening a new building as well. So it looks pretty modern and so on. So feel free to stop by and take a look. Yeah. And there's some other development as well, like in different parts of Hong Kong later on. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And it's just a very brief introduction that we did today. But if you're interested, please feel free to contact us further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
Any immediate questions or? Thank you so much, Rachel, and also late evening in Hong Kong. So really appreciate that.
No, not at all. Thank you so much.
Okay, but let's go to the next speaker, which is the company Universe, they are based in Cyberport. So we're having the CEO and founder, Mr. Chris Fong, please.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be sharing at the event. I'm Chris Fong. I'm the founder of Universe, and I'm an entrepreneur. Which was starting in early 22, and we are currently building 2 products. The first one is Universe, as you see on my screen. It is a Pokemon Go mobile game in crypto, which use token to motivate to incentivize people to generate data and drive them to offline accept merchants or shops. And the second product, which is our ring on my finger, it's it's a smart wearables, can trace your health data like steps, heartbeat, and as well as the sleeping data. And also you can provide your data and have token for reward. Means that comparing to the Web2 solution, actually the users can benefit from the data they generate. And I want to share a bit more about when and why I start being a builder in Web3. It was early 22, and that time, because after COVID, the economy of Hong Kong is not that good, and and I remember it was the last phase of the bull market in crypto. So a lot of friend of mine just grow a lot of NFTs and tokens. So I started to learn what crypto is, and I felt quite interesting about it. But at that time, the policy and the climate of Web3 in Hong Kong is not quite mature, and I started my project actually is in March of 22. After the FinTech Week in late October 22, as King just shared, the climate just changed at once. So all the crypto people around the world know about Hong Kong was going to start supporting crypto, and the narrative is quite bullish as well. So for us, the most important benefit, it actually is much easier to do fundraising as a Hong Kong Web3 startup. And we have finished 2 rounds of fundraising, adding up $6 million US. And we also benefit from the Cyberport incubation program as well. We joined in in the second quarter of 23, and really appreciate the efforts of Cyberport and Invest Hong Kong keep building the Hong Kong Web3 industry. And also they introduce us to other Hong Kong funding program as well, like the Hong Kong productivity console. Actually, you know, we are building our like growth our users overseas, not only in Hong Kong or in Asia. So we have to attend a lot of overseas like conventions and having a booth. And actually, the cost is quite high. So there is a like program is called Bud Fund of provided by the Hong Kong PC, which like subsidizing like 50% of your cost for the overseas marketing. So a bit adding up to like 1 million Hong Kong dollar, I remember. So we are also like benefit from this kind of program as well. It really helps a lot for like a startup of Web3 Web3 startup in Hong Kong. So and I would like to share a bit more about like uh, doing fundraising as a Hong Kong startup. So in the beginning, like because I was from the traditional banking industry, I was doing like IPO stuff in Hong Kong for about 10 years. So the crypto native guy will they regard us as a like non-crypto native at all. So it's quite difficult to do fundraising in the beginning. So the policy climate change helps us. Yeah, this is my sharing as a like a first-hand like builder of Hong Kong startup. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Okay. So thank you so much, Chris. And give my hands. Thank you so much. And also thank you for being so late in Hong Kong. Any immediate question from the audience here?
I have a question.
Yes.
Which market do you address with your products?
Actually, Japan is our largest like market, then Taiwan and Korea and Vietnam.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's last but not least to do via video link. We have two speakers, the CEO founder from Sites, Ashutosh, and then we have for Hedera Hashgraph Association, David Graham. Please, can you welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us. So I am the founder and CEO of XOLS, which basically stands for Cross Asset Liability Transaction Services. We are a financial technology infrastructure company. We started little over 2 years ago. We're funded by some of the biggest VCs in the world, including Axel, and some of the banks, including Citigroup. What we do...
Ash, we hear you, but we don't see you. I don't know if you have any camera on there, but it's always nicer.
I do have my camera on, but I'm right now in Beijing, so
Okay.
I'm not sure if the relay is happening properly.
Yeah, we hear you. Perfect. Please.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. No, so as I was saying, we started a little over 2 years ago, and we started in Hong Kong. What we do as a company is slightly different than a typical Web3 company. We primarily exist to build for the large regulated institutions, which include major banks, central banks, and some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies. Those are also our clients. As of today, we work with about 20 of the biggest global banks, about 45 or so Fortune 500 companies all around the world. And what we do is effectively financial messaging between corporates and banks and some of the other players involved. One of the biggest uses of blockchains and tokenization has been in financial messaging, be it in what we call liability services, which is moving money, So everything from CBDCs, stablecoins, tokenized deposits, all the way to tokenized assets, which could be tokenized receivables, trade finance assets, bonds, what have you. So that's where we exist. And most of what we do as a tech provider is a fairly extensive bit of blockchain infrastructure when you think about how would the likes of an HSBC want to adopt it. Because even if you have the simplest technology and you have all the regulations, regulated processes and large institutions have their own processes, you got to adopt some of these things for these institutions to be able to use them. And when you're thinking about practical applications, you got to also think about cost effectiveness of how a regulated institution, which is a large bank, when they start to do multi-chain indexing and what have you, how expensive it could be. So we think about all of those variations. Somebody talked about, linking identities to digital wallets. We actually have something called smart organizations, where a smart wallet linked to an organization can be linked to multiple thousands of people who could be clients of the company or workers in the company. So all of those variations need to be thought through and built, and that's what we do as a company. Our experience in Hong Kong has been pretty amazing because, again, what we do as a company, you could largely build this company in about 5 cities of the world, which include New York, London, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Tokyo. That's about it. If you need to start XOLs, these are the only 5 cities in the world you can start, because you will not get the banking presence anywhere. Hong Kong in all these 5 cities has a unique advantage that apart from a fairly supportive regulator and an ecosystem of banks, you also have a very robust and very vibrant, technology infrastructure and Web3 infrastructure all around you, along with a fairly robust and supportive talent scheme. So not just about engineers in China, but engineers from all around Asia could actually come into Hong Kong much more easily than some of the other peer cities in Asia. So those are all the advantages we have had. As far as raising money goes, look, we raised money in 48 hours from some of the most prestigious VCs and banks. We literally gave them 48 hours to give us a term sheet. That has happened. So our experience as a company raising money based out of Hong Kong has been nothing but extremely positive. We collaborate with some of the biggest blockchains, including Hedera, which David represents. So happy to answer any questions you may have about this particular space.
Okay, David, can you jump in, please?
Yes, let me jump in here. Thanks, Ash. And I'll put on some slides as well. Give me a second here.
Perfect, we see that.
Can you guys see the screen okay?
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Okay. So thank you and good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Guan, and I look after the Asia Pacific growth activities on behalf of the blockchain protocol Hedera Hashgraph. And today I'm excited to share about what we're doing in region as an infrastructure and a blockchain company to support Web3 businesses in Hong Kong. And just to give a quick introduction, Hedera is an enterprise-grade public distributed ledger and a blockchain. And I think what makes us unique are the 5 properties that I have above: performance, stability, security, governance, and sustainability. I won't get into the specifics too much, but practically what this means for entrepreneurs and for enterprises in Hong Kong more generally is that we offer the highest level of security. We allow startups to build with confidence, knowing that the applications run on infrastructure that processes over 10,000 transactions per second, all while being pegged to the US dollar. And so you might have heard of gas fees on some of the other blockchain protocols. The average transaction fee on Hedera averages out to 0.001 US dollars. And I think the 2 final things that I'd like to highlight that make Hedera different is it's the governance. And you see here some of the Fortune 500 companies that represent our governing council. And so they're part of a community that participates in governance and collectively make decisions around network innovation, treasury management, and also many of them themselves are participating in building their own use cases. So this kind of enterprise model also makes us a little bit different. And then also when it comes to environmental impact, Hedera actually has the lowest carbon footprint per transaction of any public network, as done by a study by UCL in 2023. So that's the infrastructure. Now I'm going to go in a little bit about how us as an infrastructure is supporting Web3 journeys of businesses in Hong Kong. And so from the Asian Pacific chapter that I represent, there are kind of 6 key areas of support below. And so first is the Cyberport partnership. So just as Rachel had presented earlier, just as King had alluded to earlier, Cyberport is the kind of the premier innovation hub for Web3 for Hong Kong. And in our collaboration, we're actually proud sponsors of several projects that have applied and been accepted into the Web3 POC subsidy schemes. They're green fintech POC subsidy schemes, where we provide technical advisory and training to the projects wanting to build on top of Hedera. And then again, Exalt is also one of these projects that we're working very closely with. And so we facilitated an integration of our network into their technology stack and their platform. And this allows us now to do joint go-to-market activities and onboard other partners in our ecosystem that want to leverage their platform. So we're also part of Web3 Harbor, which is one of the public and private sector advocacy groups for blockchain in the region. And as a founding protocol sponsor and a member of the enterprise committee, we're helping to raise awareness of Web3 in Hong Kong to educate traditional enterprises. We've created open source development toolkits around stablecoins and real world asset tokenization. And the idea is to make it as easy and simple as possible for companies to test blockchains in minutes and hours versus spending weeks. And then through our chapter presence, we really want to be that single point of contact for anything in Hong Kong that are looking for support, either on the tech side or on the business side. And the idea is to obviously build a lot of local use cases and success stories. And so Hedera has 3 primary funding and enablement programs that I'd like to just highlight quickly. So the Hashgraph Innovation Program, this is targeted at startups where we provide incubation and acceleration. We have the Enterprise Accelerator Program, which funds large enterprises and government use cases so that we can help subsidize their builds and POCs to explore the technology. And then as well, we have a dedicated ventures fund that provides co-investment funding for Series A companies and above. And then lastly, I just want to highlight that Hedera has partnered with Udemy to create a comprehensive and free developer training course that equips local developers or developers around the world to equip them with the technical knowledge to code on and build on top of Hedera. And as part of our local efforts, we're obviously working with universities to host hackathons and promote learning sessions to build a strong talent pipeline for Web3 in Hong Kong. And so to close, I just want to emphasize that our commitment to Hong Kong goes beyond just providing the technology, but also providing an ecosystem and the enablement programs as a foundation to give the companies the resources they need to succeed. So that's it for my presentation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ash and David. Any immediate questions from the audience or? Who's done? Okay. Again, Ash and David, thank you so much. It's late in Hong Kong. Really appreciate that. And we continue here physically, but of course, you are welcome to join in here. We're having a physical speaker here, and Web3 company in Sweden. We're having Christian Under, please.
Thank you very much for having me.
So my name is Christian Ander. I'm founder and CEO of BTCX or Groovit. We are a quite old Web3 company. We started when there was only one token around, but it was called Bitcoin. And that's the largest token we have today. I usually don't call it a token, but let's do that anyway. It's about 1 trillion in market cap, US dollar. So I want to share a story about how it is to be a founder in Sweden. I can only agree with previous speakers about these 5 hubs. You were really fast in telling them, but Hong Kong is one of them. Was it? No, I don't remember. Was it Singapore maybe or London? I don't know. But Sweden is definitely, Stockholm is definitely not one of these 5 hubs. And I will come into a bit into that. But anyway, we started 12 years ago, so we're a Bitcoin exchange. We help clients, customers, private persons, institutions to buy and sell Bitcoin. Very, very simple. And also educate. We've been educating the government and a lot of institutions throughout these years. We also have a AML tool to automate your compliant, like anti-money laundering tools, especially if you're on Web3, you have many different kind of transaction and smart contracts and tokens, and you want to make sure that you don't interact with a country which you're not allowed to do or sanction, etc. Starting a company, you need definitely conviction, and there's many ways to have your conviction. Mine, I got quite early. I wanted to try, okay, how can I buy Bitcoin? And the only place to buy Bitcoin at that time was in Tokyo, Japan. The exchange was called Mt. Gox. So I sent money to Mt. Gox, and it was quite hard. My first hurdle was to actually make an international payment with my bank, but I managed that, and then it took another week until it arrived, and the cost was quite high as well. So entering a global world, which we're getting more and more global every day. And when I wanted to withdraw my Bitcoin from Tokyo, Japan, it took less than a tenth of a second. And that was my, oh shit, this is going to change the global economy from the feet up. And that's that assumption is still valid, and it's growing by the day. So with that conviction that Bitcoin will change the world, and now we have around 1 million other tokens around. I stumbled up to challenges, and one of those challenges has we been talking about is regulation, of course. Another is the banking situation. So in Sweden, we have both problems. Both the regulators are not helpful, and also the banks are not helpful. Luckily, we have good lawyers and legal assistants both in this room and in Stockholm. And now we also get the MiCA crypto license from EU, which also will be extremely helpful. So those challenges are there, but it's definitely improving. And also fundraising is a challenge in Stockholm. There are money in this capital, but they're also hesitant in Web3 and crypto and Bitcoin. So that's also changing. So listening to all the speakers, maybe I should go to Hong Kong for a week and see what happens there. Because we're in the middle of a growth process, of course, going out to EU because of MiCA, but also looking into Asia. I haven't looked in Hong Kong, but I have to do that when I come on. We're looking in, of course, Japan and Korea and Taiwan, because they're very, very big markets. And then also Latin America, South America, like Argentina and Brazil is really big in growing. All right, that's my speedy presentation. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions.
Any questions, Christian? Oh, okay, well, thank you. It's time for the panel, and it's you, Mats, who is the moderator. And we're having four panelists here. Carola Xenia from Cirio Law, Elvin Fonskebrandt from Nordic Legal.
Come here.
Please come up here. Åsa Leander from Real Juridik and Andreas Karl. I suggest that should we stand up or sit? Maybe. So, Mats.
I think it's fine if you sit there. I will stand over here. All right, thank you very much for coming here. This is, I mean, the idea here is to give entrepreneurs and innovators some form of gateway into this complicated landscape. In preparing for this event, I mean, the more I read about it, the more complicated it becomes, from my point of view. And I hope you can help us a little bit to paint the landscape, because I will start with the obvious question about what is called the MiCA, marketing in crypto assets. But it's not only that you have to relate to. So MiCA is just part of a landscape that you have to relate to. And I'm trying to figure out how they are linked to one another. Reading about this, one thing that I thought about when I was reading about crypto assets, we never talk about crypto assets in my network. It feels almost a little bit dated in a way. It's, for me, it feels like talking about floppy disk, regulating floppy disk in the 80s. It feels that we moved on in some area. But could I start with you also? Ask you, could you help us to paint the picture? I mean, it's so many. You have EBA, ESMA, and you have MiCA, and all these things. And I'm trying to figure out how do they relate to one another.
Okay, just to take a step back from the complexity then, and trying to simplify things. MiCA, which is then the Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation, which regulates crypto assets then, unfortunately, I will use that word, within the European Union, is a part really of the financial regulation framework. And I believe to give some, that's important to keep in mind because the European legislator has seen, and specifically with regard to Facebook's Libra coin, that was the really trigger for the MiCA regulations to end up where they are. There was some speed on the European legislator. And what they are worried about is that this new asset class and this new kind of asset can actually affect the financial stability of the European Union and the monetary sovereignty of different areas. And also, of course, markets integrity, which that we need to have markets that work for this kind of asset. We don't have market abuse and so on. And finally, of course, investor protection issues. And all of these four objectives are, they're the same for other financial regulations. And trying to explain how to approach MiCA if you're working in this area, I would say you need to differ between if you issue a token or if you are providing services regarding crypto assets. If you are providing services, for example, wallet services or portfolio management services or exchanges like Christian is doing, you will need to have a license for that as a crypto asset service provider. And depending on what kind of license you have, of course, there will be more or less tougher regulations. To simplify it even more, a crypto asset service provider is actually an investment firm, however, regarding crypto assets instead of financial instruments. That's how I see this. And you can also see the similarities in the legislations between MiCA and the Markets in Financial Instruments Directive, which applies to investment firms. However, if you are an issuer of a token, I would approach this regulation by really looking into what kind of token is this? What is the purpose? What can you use it for? And here we have another extremely important definition. the thing is, a token can be almost anything. So a token can actually be a financial instrument too. And if the token is considered to qualify as a financial instrument, you would end up in MiFID, i.e. the Market and Financial Instruments Directive, the European Securities Market Law, and not in MiCA. So that's the first thing you need to consider and qualify regarding your token. If you, however, do not qualify your token as a financial instrument, you end up in MiCA. And there we have a difference between 3 different kinds of tokens. The first one is the e-money token, which is simply a token which purports to maintain a stable value by referring to another fiat currency or a fiat currency. And the other one is the asset reference token, which I personally think is the most difficult one, which is a token that references or purports to maintain a stable value by referencing another value or asset. And finally, you have the catch-all clause, which is the other tokens, including the utility tokens, which is the lightest version. And I know Elvin is very good at this. There are some exclusion also, for example, for non-fungible tokens, but then they really need to be non-fungible. That's, for example, a very good exclusion from the financial regulations at all. But that I know Elvin is.
Well, then I'll continue with the distinction between non-fungible token and other token.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having us, and thank you for that great introduction to me also. I don't know how much people in this room know about non-fungible tokens. It's quite a niche area of crypto assets. I've been helping a lot of NFT projects for a long while, and there's this interesting gray area right now where you can actually do some legal engineering with non-fungible tokens and crypto assets and financial instruments. So as also mentioned, non-fungible tokens are excluded from the scope of MiCA, but non-fungible tokens as the industry sees it is not the crypto industry, is not how the EU defines it. They consider, for example, have people heard of the Bored Ape Yacht Club? These apes that are worth 500,000. Yeah, we have one person here at least. These big collections of pictures of animals will probably not be considered non-fungible tokens. And these are the ones that are actually the ones that have had significant growth on the NFT market, the non-fungible market. Meanwhile, there is still some, when you launch a non-fungible token, unlike a fungible token, there are certain properties that you can play with. A non-fungible token has a unique identifier. For example, $1 you can always replace with $1, but a non-fungible token is, strictly not speaking, replaceable with another non-fungible token because they all have unique identifiers. Now, we have had clients that elaborate with this and then start putting on different, let's say, music royalties to NFTs or other financial gain. So they're not considered financial instruments, but instead they're arguing that they are considered crypto assets subject to MiCA because they are still pretty fungible, but maybe you can legally engineer them, play with the attributes to make them at least a crypto asset and not a financial instrument. So that's a lot what I do. I'm specialized in NFTs, and I find this area between MiFID and crypto assets quite interesting. And I think we're getting more and more clarity on it. And I think the regulators, especially the European Banking Authority and ESMA, will try to prevent this. But right now there is this quite niche area within the legal context that's interesting to play with.
Okay, so
I would use a very, very different approach for many reasons, if I may.
Yes.
Even though I'm also a lawyer, my personal experience is that if the level of or number of lawyers in a certain square meter rises above a certain number, the audience level of boredom is gonna rise proportionally as well. So I'm gonna change and shift into the business perspective of all of this. I'm also a lawyer, by the way, but that's I'm wearing the entrepreneur hat here. So the point is that exactly the regulatory part, we heard a little bit of intro here, but when you are thinking about entering the Web3 market, I would start with what's your actual business purpose, what type of business problems you actually have, and what kind of technological potential solution, like we are talking about Web3, of course, can offer. So do you want to solve a business problem as to traceability in your own business, or do you have some trust matters? That's also partly because fintech, because of why fintech is one of the most like developed area actually within Web3 is, and then you get actual answers to that problem with tokenization, for example. And it's another important thing that there are a lot of studies on why the adoption rate is not as high as it could be actually globally on Web3. The number, latest I read, of course, there are different studies and research all the time. The latest I read, it's pretty low, actually 6.8% globally. And this technology can make a wonder. You also mentioned a lot of applicability and cases where it could be very useful. But I don't think that we have to have very much focus on the technology itself, like how does it work and what the regulations are coming. And I have another comment actually on your slide quickly, that you had a big question mark at legal when you had the 3 circles, yes. Right? That I understand that frustration or all of
that is my perspective.
Yes, my answer to that is that illustration shouldn't look like that. That illustration should interfere because when it comes to emerging technologies, the actual answers lie in the intersection of technology, business, and law. And when we are getting too much stuck in the traditional legal past, this is what we've been doing since 2012. Actually, we are the first interdisciplinary law firm in the EU. Then you get a question mark. So it's just a short or longer, or I don't know, side note of all the great regulatory introductions here.
Yeah. Okay. So may I ask a question about, I mean, because you mentioned several roles as an issuer. Sometimes I read about market maker, custodians, etc. You mentioned a little bit about the different roles you can play, but can you give us a little bit more insight in when it comes to MiCA? When I read a MiCA, I have all these roles that you can play. I'm not sure who would like to.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Well, for example, the market makers and what did you mention more? Custodians, yeah.
Then issuer you mentioned.
So how I try to structure this is that I divide between the offerer of a token or an issuer of a token or a person that applies for admission to an exchange of a token. And that is really, as I see it, more where that person could be a legal person or a natural person is actually, well, not in all cases it can be a natural person, but I'm just trying to illustrate person has a product. So that's like the difference between being an intermediary and being the issuer or offerer and so on. When you're talking about custody, that is a service you're providing to a client, i.e. you are an intermediary. And if we talk just about custody, for example, that is a specific crypto service that if you want to provide that service within the European Union, and that's, or more correctly, the EEA, because also the 3 EEA countries are connected to this framework, then you would need to apply for a license as a crypto asset service provider providing that custody service. And you would then need to abide to those specific rules that are set out in MiCA regarding that service. So I tried to keep it just not too complex, but depending on what kind of service you're actually providing, there will of course be different rules to that. we need to comply with. But trying to separate if it's a product you're producing and you're selling it, or distributing it somehow yourself, or you're actually acting as an intermediary with customers who you service.
Okay, thank you.
Mats,
Yes,
is it allowed to get the?
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Lars Hansson. So I see now in this area the magnificent situation of degrees of freedom. The legislation is weak or heavy or so on. And I fully understand that one goes out of the frame and the context of established phenomena or financial providing. But have you seen, or can you elaborate on now in this field of something that's big and have opportunities to just create new services that was a combination of different things that you can actually launch because there is a field and it's a certain moment now.
That you mean is not regulated specifically?
Not regulated, but not even in the frame of the usual context or the usual way of thinking.
Yeah.
Because if I sell a service to you, you have to understand what I'm selling to you. Of course, that's why we are using the established framework, which is in other kind of securities. Totally agree on that, and that's also how the legislator do. But on other hand, you can see, wow, you could be able to do something completely different.
Yeah.
And everyone that works in the financial sector knows that there is a lot of silly rules still that is based on what Eva Kruger did in 1920s. That still is in the corporate law today.
They actually have backed a little on that.
Yeah,
one,
I know,
yeah.
but more or less. So that's now I think. Have you thought about just creating something completely new that is?
If I understand you correctly, I mean the legislation is. This is also a tricky question because what MiCA does is that they regulate certain services, right?
Okay.
And the main rule, and we have the national competent authorities within the European Union, which supervise and they can also sanction. And there are rules regarding this that you can't really sanction unless you're breaching a rule.
No.
So I think that's where you're coming from.
Yeah, more,
And the challenge, I would say, with MiCA is that it's regulating a field that is developing so quickly that the rules are already kind of out of date and they aren't really capturing, for example, staking, lending, borrowing it's not captured within MiCA, but is what people do today. So the question could be, okay, can I provide staking services and fall outside of MiCA? Possible. If that's what.
Yeah, more or less, but also more that you are bringing in functions.
Yeah.
And you're solving problems in a different way.
Yeah.
That is not really on the market today or in the mind of people. And that's, so it was more a pragmatic way of see how you can use the tool. And then if it's in the regulator's mind, yes or no, or whether it's functional, that's another thing. Now it was more of entrepreneurship in the way of seeing. We get something completely different.
But if I may, on that, I have some background from gambling law. And in gambling, the classic scenario is that you deposit your money to a gambling operator. You trust them that when you play and you win the jackpot, they will give you your winnings back. I have a client who has put all the code to the games on chain. So there's no intermediary. There's nowhere to deposit. What you do is you interact with the smart contract. So basically, you just play directly with the contract, and depending on if you win or not, you get your money immediately back to your crypto wallet. So the centralized aspect of putting the trust into operator is fully eliminated. Now this raises a whole bunch of different questions. But how do you know that the person playing is not conducting money laundering or yada yada? So instead of KYC, you have KYT, know your transaction and stuff like that.
That's typically what I meant.
Yeah. So this is going on, but also then we have Mikael in the middle of this and regulations. And Europe is sort of trying to catch it all. It will be difficult. Many of these clients are moving abroad. That's my Asia is a hub right now. Hong Kong for sure, Singapore as well.
I'm actually hearing US too.
Yeah.
I have several companies from US, Canada direction moving here.
But I think one important thing to mention also regarding all regulations in finance in Europe is that it's tech neutral. That's important to remember. So substance over form. If it, I usually say, looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it is a duck. It doesn't matter how you dress it, it is, and it will be caught by those regulations. And the very good example on that is tokens which qualify as financial instruments. They will be considered financial. Just as the US has this, if it looks like, or it qualifies for the Howey test, it will be considered a security. Now, we don't go as far as the US, but still.
Okay, Andreas.
Sorry, just one comment on, and then what you are also into is the EU is having its sight on it too. So they are, partly there is MiCA, other things coming up. They are already working on MiCA 2 and so on, like NFT and so regulations, but they also set up distributed ledger technology pilot regime. I think it was last year, or it's about like pretty new as well. And the whole point of that is actually what you just said, to foster innovation and find out something really good services or whatever, which hasn't been on board yet, or we haven't heard about yet. So the EU is actually trying to balance out both sides of creating a more or less secure and certain legal environment, but still trying to foster innovation itself. We will see. They are putting on a very different bet than the US actually. The US approach is absolutely free market oriented. The EU uses a more, whether traditional or how to let's not label it, but a different one. So we will see. It's going to be interesting times.
Thank you.
All right, Andreas, now I put you in the box of tax, but I'm not sure that is fair.
No, but I do come from a tax space, and I've been sitting here listening. Very, very interesting discussion, a little bit outside of my field, but still to some extent inside my field as well. My background is in tax law. I've been advising in the blockchain and crypto field since about 2016. With both companies and individuals. And I think we've touched upon that both in the previous presentations and this discussion. I think one of the major questions there is that this is a very innovative field. It's moving very, very quickly. And although there are regulatory processes in place on an EU level, it will take quite some time before all of that regulation is in place and before that has caught up where the technology of today is at. So in my experience throughout these years working with startup companies and individuals and seeing all these new types of transactions and new types of businesses and solutions to old problems, is I think an important thing to be able to keep up and keep the authorities on good foot as well, is to try to be at all times one step ahead in your accounting and tax compliance, as well as of course in terms of regulatory compliance. But I think one of the first places that authorities start to look is in your taxes and your accounts. So to have the correct advisory from the get-go and to make sure that your products align with, or at least is transferable to an existing concept, or at least that you can translate what you do in some extent to an existing concept in order to make sure that you can document the way that you keep your accounts in an area where there are no accounting principles in place. There is no guidance to use. You have to make up that guidance yourself. And I think that the way to do that is to surround yourself with the right type of advisor, the correct advisors. And I think, Christian, you touched upon that as well in your presentation, that being one step ahead is really important in this space, and making sure that you document the way you do things. Because if you do that, you can also show that you've done everything you can in a landscape where you have very few regulations at the moment. So I think that is one of the key points from that perspective.
Kind of proof of good intentions.
Proof of good intentions, and also it's a way of sort of setting the tone for the regulation to come. So if you have already thought out with your business in mind how the current legal landscapes should be applied on your business, then you have something to come with when authorities come and they start asking you questions. You can basically present a blueprint for how you interpret that the legislation should be, and you can basically use that as a basis for discussion that could potentially turn into regulations.
We use this approach as well, and we have very good experiences, because just like you say, if you show good intentions, these are new regulations basically to everyone. Also for the authorities, they are also panicking a little bit at the moment, by the way, or maybe not even a little bit. So this is a very good approach, and we usually meet with very friendly, cooperative conversations with this.
Andreas, can you give a practical example of what you said?
Yeah. So, for example, we have NFTs, as we have touched upon. I think with clients that we have, and it's important to remember that in blockchain technology, what we do is basically transactions. We transact information or property or different types of assets. And in a transaction, from a traditional legal perspective, a transaction usually of a good, for example, or a service, means in most cases that you have VAT implications. So from our perspective, working with clients in the NFT space, for example, what we've done is we've sat down and tried to the best of our ability to understand the product that they provide, and try to translate that into a more traditional context for VAT purposes, in order to build up an argumentation for how do we apply the existing VAT legislation on an asset that is not specifically regulated under the VAT legislation. So we've started breaking down what an NFT actually is, technically, arguing that there are different parts to an NFT. There's a contract and there's an asset. And we've built up an argument that it's the underlying assets that should be decisive of the VAT assessment, independent of the digital contract that is the NFT. We did this before the Swedish tax agency had anything published about NFTs and VAT. I'm not going to say that it was before they had figured out that they could charge VAT on NFT transactions, but we did this long before they did. And we have successfully also had support in Swedish courts from this, which has now stated that, contrary to the tax agency's opinion, though, but we've now have full support that it's the underlying assets that should be decisive of VAT and not the digital contract that is an NFT.
Good. So I have a former life as a sort of tax professor, tax advisor. So I'm very old, and I was in the same situation when the fiber cables came, and we had to decide who's going to tax these kind of things. So thank you for.
Can I just add on that, because that's also this substance over form, which you're talking about, and I would like to take another example of this, because we're talking about MiCA now and MiFID and regulations, but that's just one part of the law. And there are so many other laws that apply to transfer assets, civil law, and so on. And I have what I'm working a lot with right now is actually tokenization of real world assets. And to my joy, I discovered that there are actually things happening in Sweden that a little go under radar. For example, if you want to tokenize a real estate property, that would probably be considered then you start up an SPV, you issue shares, for example, or debt, or we're talking about funds previously. All these kinds of instruments would qualify as financial instruments, right? And if we talk about equity, that's just part one. We have the SPV, we're going to sell this real world asset token in the form of equity, which is tokenized. But then we have the next problem. If it's a Swedish limited liability, how do we register this on the share ledger? So then we move into company law, the Swedish company law. And here there are actually suggestions now from the Swedish government to change the Swedish Companies Law, Companies Act, to actually also approve of having your shares registered in a distributed ledger. And then we have this, so that's step 2. And then we have step 3. If I want to have my real world asset token sold on an exchange, then we have the DLT pilot regime, which actually opens up for this kind of instrument to be traded on an exchange by an intermediary who has that license pursuant to the DLT pilot. So we can actually see now, at least, I'm saying at least in Sweden, I know Germany does it, I know France does it, but I'm happy to see that there's happening things in Sweden too, where the entire flow actually works. We can do this because we have a flow through the entire system. And then, of course, with the bookkeeping and VAT and everything, that's great. We're like putting it all together.
Okay, I usually ask this question because I don't know the answer. Is that when I'm thinking about Web3 digital wallets, I mean, I know people that can generate these wallets 10,000 per second. I mean, and how do you attach that to someone that owns it, or an entity that is actually responsible in? I mean, it could be in tax terms or whatever. I mean, how are wallets? I mean, how do you link it to some entity that owns it? Probably, I don't know.
It's a very good question. No, we do have some use cases from a tax perspective. I know that the tax agency has been asking the very same question and been very for at least a short while a bit reluctant to accepting that a legal entity can own a wallet. Again, what we've tried to do is to translate what this actually is into the closest thing that we can find in traditional law. And as with many things, the important thing is to be able to establish a line of proof that you can connect a wallet with, for example, a company. So what we've done in some cases is that we've connected the transactions in the wallet from the opening of the wallet and throughout all the transactions, which is traceable in the wallet, to the accounting. So we've made where we can establish that all of the transactions in a wallet is present in an account or in the accounts of a company. And we can, in some other way, also connect by, for example, proving that the representatives of the company hold the private keys to the wallet. We can establish a line of proof that the wallet and the transactions in the wallet is closely connected to the company, that at least from an accounting and a tax perspective, we can say that it is most likely owned and operated by the company.
And then I can make it more.
I don't want to. I just let it time, please. It's 4 minutes left.
All right.
4 minutes. I think a lot of us will stay here, so it's time for Q&A. But respect with your time, and you can sneak out.
All right. I just want to mention this with multi-sign wallet, because then you can have thousands of entities or a natural person that own a share in a multi-sign wallet, and how do you do that? How do you handle that? It becomes very complicated.
It is complicated, and I think that the boring answer is that in all cases, we won't be able to establish the ownership.
Oh, all right.
The crypto forensics is pretty developed by now, since the technology itself is not that young anymore compared to or like in the tech world. So that's
What I'm thinking also when we talk about tokenized real world asset, and we are looking into how you link a wallet to a specific asset, and you create a link between them, because then it's the thing that owns the wallet, not the owner of the machine, and then. So it becomes even more complicated. But any questions from here? I mean, I know there are experts in the room here. Go ahead.
I think the example there with gaming smart contract is interesting to know a little bit more about. I mean, a smart contract is deployed.
Yeah.
I mean, no boundaries. It's just in the Web3 world. It's not connected to any country, no jurisdiction at all. So, yeah, how do you go from there? How do you understand who you should talk with and which one should you talk to make it more simple than others, for example, and tax implications? You move crypto to an address.
Yeah.
You need to care for that, or is it the receiver only who needs to tax for it? And so on. It's just a smart contract as an entity only. And I think, as I understand it, MiCA doesn't cover that. It's only, custodians and so on. Intermediaries, basically, MiCA is looking into, not the smart contracts.
Yeah, I mean, so MiCA excludes services that are fully decentralized.
Yeah.
And that's how our clients, together with us, have put in a lot of effort to structure this in a fully decentralized way, where it's fully autonomous. Obviously, you have interface issues because there's always someone who runs the interface. Basically how you get access to the games, but strictly speaking, if someone is tech savvy, they can just go they can interact with the smart protocol without the interface. And so this is, no one needs to run it. It runs itself. People can gamble and win or lose without anyone deciding if they will get their money back. It's paid out immediately. So I would, and I mean, it's kind of crazy how much money they make, because it's like gambling and crypto has a lot of synergies between their users, if we put it like that. And in traditional gambling, there's this KYC element. You need to deposit funds. Here with crypto, it's instant. And because you just interact with the smart protocol, you sign, you pay the gas, and sometimes it's gasless, depending on, or practically gasless, but depending on the chain. But you can lose or win money within like 10 seconds, depending on how fast the smart protocol and the RNG determines the winner. So it's in this field, it's called gambling finance. So yeah, it's super exciting, and I mean it is fully decentralized. At least the gambling part is fully decentralized. And of course you have there are ways to find people who are behind it, but because they want to be outside of the scope of MiCA, they have decided to go all in on the decentralized aspects and try to decentralize as much of governance and the interface as well. So,
but the gambling is a kind of a highly regulated industry, and usually you pick very carefully where you run your servers.
Yeah.
But something needs to be applied here as well, I guess, or?
Yeah, so gambling is highly regulated, but because there's no fiat gambling here, there's no dollars, it's crypto gambling. So most jurisdictions, unlike actually the Swedish one, doesn't recognize crypto gambling as gambling with money. So that's the key. And if they do, they just geo-block that jurisdiction. So there's a lot of legal engineering here and ways to find.
You mean betting on underlying crypto assets or using crypto as
Talking
company?
about like slot machines.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
And like pure gambling. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, our time is out. I know there's one question over there. Last one.
If you think that there's any of these regulations are in danger of kind of driving certain crypto assets or Web3 innovations extinct, is there, is the regulation, like some of what you've been talking about is you're comparing it to traditional, oh, well, they're taxed now similar to how we would tax securities, or, oh, that we're regulating issuers similar to how we would regulate securities issuers. And I know that kind of the whole innovation of blockchain and everything was to not be so centralized or regulated. So are the regulations in danger of driving these innovations extinct? Or is there a certain category that you think is in danger? Or do you think this new regulatory regime is enabling innovation?
I think that's a really, really good question. Personally, I think that regulation is very good because it gives trust in a market. And this is a market that, I mean, I think all of us really believe in. And there are investor protection issues and there are financial stability issues if this really grows. So I think that regulation is good for the industry, actually. However, I do believe that MiCA it goes too far and it doesn't respect and it's not humble enough for what we don't know and what we don't understand, and applying traditional financial regulations on something new is like, trying to fit a ball in a square. It doesn't really fit. And I personally would have liked to have seen MiCA being more cautious and sophisticated and beginning slowly and then instead, and more principle based, not so detailed. So consumer protection, take care of your clients, act honestly, fairly, and don't mislead your clients. We can do a lot about that. That's how Nordic law is actually based from the beginning. However, MiCA, unfortunately now, we don't have the UK in the EU anymore. France and Germany has a tendency of really driving regulations in detail, which is just in absurdum for us. So if that answers your question, yeah, I think it's not really good. It's good, but not really good.
No, if I can just add on that quickly. I think in my experience, I'm not going to comment on MiCA specifically, but in my experience, having worked with startups for a number of years within this space, I think that one of the common denominators of the startups is that they want regulations because they want to be able to foresee the consequences of their actions and their innovations, both from a regulatory perspective, but also from a tax and accounting perspective. They don't want to live with the uncertainty of what they do today may be judged by someone in 5 years when they are up and running, and someone come and say that you've done your accounts or your tax accounting wrong for the past couple of years, and now we will issue both tax and a fine for that. They want to be able to foresee the consequences of their actions. So in my experience, most companies are welcoming regulations and they want more clarity in place.
Right, I think we are out of time. I want to say one more thing, because working with these things, I run AI asking the question, what came first, life forms, regulators? And I have a surprise to you, it was life forms.
Agree to disagree.
All right, okay, thank you very much for this fantastic.
Thank you so much, Cirio, for hosting here. Fantastic venue here. Thank you, Mats, also for all this insight and arranging, and thank you all the speakers here today and all participants, and also should wave in the camera there. For the online speakers, maybe they're still there. It's late in Hong Kong, but we also have listeners listening to here. So we will be here for a while. So if there are any more questions or discussion, but thank you so much again for participating.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, goodbye everyone.
Det är mycket, det är mycket. Tack så mycket. Det är mycket att hålla ordning på. Jag tror jag kan ägna resten av mitt liv och försöka hålla ordning på det.
Ja, du,